So we have a little bit of poetry to finish up because I want to talk today about open form, and then also by tomorrow you're supposed to post on your classmates' videos for doing their study questions and giving feedback on their videos. So there's that left over from poetry, and then we're going to transition into preparing to read some drama, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, but that's what this week is about. Let me do my updates. Just a reminder, this is a B week, so there is a formative today, there's one on Thursday, and there's one on Friday. But if you have already noticed, on Fridays, I like to give you a little bit of a break. They told us that our formatives needed to be, you know, like about the material, but on the weeks when there's 3, I feel like you can just say hi or something. I always try to make it something interesting on Fridays. It's not going to take up too much of your time because the other formatives are, you know, based on material in class, and y'all are doing a good job with them, but we don't have to go that hard on Friday, do we? If you feel like you're being slighted in your education by having a Friday formative that is just an emoji or something like last week I had them give me a Halloween joke, then you can let me know, and I can assign informative specific questions for specific people. So if you have a complaint about that, then you can register it in my email and I'll make arrangements. Okay? Okay, all right. I'm laughing to myself, that's weird. Number 2, this is the last week of the second 6 weeks. So after this week, grades will go in on Monday. Just a reminder, I usually have my grades done before Monday. If you have an issue with your grades, you should have talked to me about it already or very soon, because I'm going to finalize grades probably Friday. So, or maybe Saturday because of the formatives that you'll have to do on Friday. But sometimes I get emails from people or I get emails from parents and they're like, well, your grades aren't due till Monday. I'm like, well, I already posted that. So I don't cram all my stuff into one weekend. I think you can tell from the grade book that I kind of grade things as we go. So I don't have to sit around all weekend trying to, you know, do grades. But if there's an issue, then let me know about it. I think the last things that will be on this 6 weeks will be your poetry project. I've watched about 80% of them. They were really good. I feel like y'all did a really good job with your poems and selecting them. I will tell you that some of them are a little edgy because of the topic. I know I selected a topic that was, you know, issues in society. And so that means that there will be some that are a little touchy. I'm just telling you, because if you have a trigger or something like that, then you just might want to be aware when you click on some of the videos. You know, there might be an issue in the poetry and then the subsequent discussion that makes you uncomfortable. For the people who emailed me, like they weren't sure about this poem or that poem or whatever, if I thought there might be a triggering thing, I asked them to put a trigger warning at the beginning of their video. Not all the videos are like this. I don't want you to freak out. But, you know, some people have issues with child abuse or rape or different things, and I just wanted to make sure that those people weren't uncomfortable trying to watch the videos. So, you know, you might have to look at a couple of them before you find the ones that you want to reply to. But that grade is going to go on. Your grade for responding to your classmates, that needs to be finished by tomorrow. So I'll go ahead and grade those real quick. And then the grade for the formatives for the 6 weeks, I'll just put in on that program on my interface. It lets me put in the dates. So I'll just put the date of the first day of the 6 weeks and the last day of the 6 weeks, and it just gives me an average of your formatives, and I'll put that grade in. I think that will be the end of the grades for the second 6 weeks for East. So this will be the last few things. Hybrid schedule started this week. I'm going to assume that they talked to you about this already since it started yesterday. Are there any questions about the hybrid schedule? You're supposed to be doing synchronous learning every day now, Monday through Thursday. In the first half of the class period. So what they changed was mainly the times are all the same unless you have second lunch. That might have changed things if your teacher has second lunch. But if you have first lunch like we do, then it didn't really change the pattern that much. What changed was in the courses, because now they have it set up so that the first half of class is synchronous, the first 45 minutes, and the second half is asynchronous. So basically all day, 4 days a week, you're supposed to be signing in, doing your class, and then having 45 minutes to work, signing into another class, and then having 45 minutes to work. The reason that they did that is because there are some students that are starting to come to campus, and more students will come next week. And then on the 16th, the schedule is going to change completely, because you can see this is only a temporary schedule for the next 2 weeks. As we phase in students who are having connectivity issues or are failing 2 or more of their core classes, those students come in, well, freshmen and seniors this week, and then all 4 grades next week. And then on the 16th, anybody who has hybrid can start coming to class. So I think that's going to affect the videos, or like the Zooms, because there'll be some people in class and some people at home. I don't really know how that's going to work. That'll be like a mystery. But if you're staying on virtual, it's not going to be that different, except the schedule will change. It's going to be more like a regular schedule from before COVID. So there'll be 4 blocks, the periods will be longer, and there won't be that 2:45 till 4 o'clock teacher contact time. So that's just going to be incorporated into the class periods. I'm not going to do that synchronous thing on Thursdays. I hope you're not mad at me. I kind of decided that things were going pretty well for most people, and we go over everything on Tuesdays. So we're going to have a few optional things coming up, and I'll talk to you about that when we start talking about drama that we'll do on Thursdays. But I don't see the need to do a lesson with you on Tuesday and another lesson with you on Thursday when I gave you everything on Tuesday. So the people who come for hybrid on Thursdays, I'm just going to work with them on what they need to for that week. Like, we'll look at that week's material and say, you know, what do you want to talk about? What do you want to go over? Do you want to read some stuff together, get you started on reading whatever the reading assignment is, that kind of thing. So this Thursday, I'm not going to have synchronous class. If you have a comment about that, you can put that in the chat. I'm hoping that that's not disappointing to you. If it is, I can have a class, but I just don't think it's necessary. What do y'all think?
I'm good with either or, miss.
You're good with either or? Okay. Well, again, if you feel like you wanted to have that synchronous, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have some watch parties starting next week. The play that we're reading, we're going to also watch a performance, because plays are written to be performed, and we're not here in the classroom to act stuff out. I'm not going to act out all the parts in Oedipus Rex for you. So we're going to watch a production. It's going to be an assignment to watch a production. I have 2 different options for you, but I'm thinking that on the Thursday during class, what I'll do is we'll have a watch party, and I'll play it here in the Zoom meeting. We'll stop, we'll talk, whatever about it. But if you want to, you can come and watch it with us, or you can watch it on your own. That's what I'm thinking. That's decent use of the time, right? I think it is. All right, well, no comments. Okay. Anyway, any other questions about the hybrid schedule?
No, ma'am.
Probably each one of your teachers is going to handle this in a different way. I had to get permission to not have synchronous classes on Thursdays and Wednesdays for my other classes, but you know, it's the nature of these classes that you guys are more autonomous, so you don't really need them. So I put on here officially our next class meeting is next Tuesday, and we will have a watch party on that Thursday and the following Thursday as we are working through Oedipus Rex. I do not intend to give you any assignments over Thanksgiving or Christmas, but there's the big but. We do have a paper and we do have an exam. So I'm going to talk to you about that a little bit. Okay, so Oedipus Rex, which is the piece we're going to read. Have any of you read that before? Have you ever read Oedipus Rex? No, it's new. It's short. You what? You watched the play?
Yeah, I watched the play.
No spoilers. Don't tell everybody because there's like some shocking moments. It's a play by Sophocles. It's an ancient Greek play that was written about 500 years BCE. And it's about 40 pages. It's doable. And it was originally on the syllabus to start that next week or week after that and go right into the week before exams. Let me bring up a calendar real quick. Oops. Just so that you can visualize it. Maybe you have a calendar in front of you. So we're right here. It was originally that we would start Oedipus the week before Thanksgiving. Maybe there would be a little bit of reading over Thanksgiving break, and then it would take the week we got back and the week of the 7th to complete reading Oedipus that way. And then exams are the week of the 14th. I started thinking that maybe in some of your classes, you might have projects, you might have papers. We have to do a paper too. And I didn't want to add to that by also making assignments to finish Oedipus. So here's what I want to do. Next week, this week and next week, we're supposed to be reading some other shorter comedy plays. I sort of took those out. I know we could all use some comedy, but we'll just laugh at Oedipus. So what I want to do is do the intro to drama this week and then read all of Oedipus. It's 40 pages in the next 2 weeks. So I'll kind of like chop it into two. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to be watching the film. So that will help you with understanding. And I also have some tools for you to help you while you're reading, some little like study guides, not questions, but just like things to help you organize what you're reading. If we finish Oedipus before we go on Thanksgiving, then I don't need to make an assignment over Thanksgiving because we're done with the play. And so it frees us up in that way. And then it gives us 2 weeks in December before exams to go ahead and finish off the paper, study for exams, and it lightens up your assignment load for December because I'm not going to be assigning you to read 20 pages of Oedipus. It's already done. So I don't know how y'all feel about that. You can put something in chat or you can unmute, but it'll be a little bit heavier, not a lot, but a little bit heavier the next 2 weeks leading up to Thanksgiving, but then that really frees us up going into exams and maybe the pressure's a little bit less in that scenario. Does anybody have a thumbs up or a comment about that at all? There's some thumbs up, okay. I mean, I'm taking out the things that I can take out, but I can't take out the research paper and I can't take out the semester exam. And I can't take out reading a drama, so I'm trying to pare it down. All right, well, let's plan on doing that then. I think it's good for you to have a week off, for all of us to have a week off for Thanksgiving. I don't even want to, probably will work, but I don't want to have to work if I don't want to on any given day, and I want to give that to you too. So I'm not planning on scheduling anything. We will have a paper. I'm going to talk about the paper next week. You can't really do it until you're done reading Oedipus, but it will be your choice if you want to work on the paper over Thanksgiving or not, because I think I'm going to make it due over here like on the 12th. So you could hold off on the paper until we got back and work on it those 2 weeks in December. And you'll have the option to do that. Or you'll have the option, if you have tons of free time and you're bored, you can get a head start on the paper. But that's the way I'm thinking about it for everybody's best interests. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't see any comments, so I'm just going to assume that y'all think it's great. Okay. Let's go into the lesson that I have for today. I want to wrap up with poetry by talking a little bit about open form on the 2 poems that you read for this week and analyzed. Then we'll talk a little bit about how we're going to start off with our drama module. So open form, the previous week we had talked about closed form. And so this week I just wanted you to experience a couple of open form poems. One of them was The Fish. These are the types of poems that don't have rules like a sonnet has. Oh, you have to rhyme in this order, only 14 lines, 10 syllables per line, all of those, guidelines that have to happen in those poems. But that doesn't mean that there isn't structure in the poem, and it doesn't mean that the poet isn't setting up their own rules about the poem and the structure that they want to set up. It's just a little more free. So we didn't really have open form poetry before the Victorian era. It just wasn't a thought that anybody had to write in any way other than closed form. But in recent years, the last 150 years or so, we have had an onslaught of open form poetry, and The Fish is a good example. So this is a poem that is about, guess what, a fish. And it's about the speaker who has already caught the fish by the time it's told in the past tense. The fish has already been caught. But it's all about a description of the grotesque beauty of this fish, right? And there's a lot of imagery, there's similes and things like that, all to describe the fish. And then there's the surprise ending when the speaker decides to let the fish go and send him on his way. The poet does set up some specific structures. For example, there are some longer sentences that create a little bit of tension and set up an anticipation about the fish. So there'll be a longer sentence like this one: I caught a tremendous fish and held him beside the boat, half out of water with my hook fast in a corner of his mouth. And then a tiny sentence: he didn't fight. And then another small sentence: he hadn't fought at all. And then a medium-sized sentence, and then a long sentence. This one goes all the way down to here. If you go through the poem and look at the length of the sentences, you'll see that they kind of get longer and longer and longer until we get this giant sentence at the end, right here. It goes all the way down. And then we get that tiny sentence at the end, and I let the fish go. So you get, I stared and stared, and victory filled up the little rented boat from the pool of bilge where oil had spread a rainbow around the rusted engine to the bailer rusted orange, the sun-cracked thwarts, the oarlocks on their strings, the gunnels, until everything was rainbow, rainbow, rainbow. So that's hard to do without taking a breath. It sort of makes you anticipate the ending. So even though Elizabeth Bishop doesn't have a rhyme scheme and there isn't a metrical pattern to her lines or any kind of order to her lines, really, we do have structure in the length of sentences. And you also have structure in this poem because it sort of tells a story, right? It's like a description of this fish and all the aspects of this fish and how she looked at it and, admired it because of its, apparent wisdom. And then she let it go. And we have that surprise ending because usually when, I guess there's catch and release fishermen, but most people tend to keep the fish that they catch, but she lets it go. And that's a little bit of a surprise. But if we go back to the poem, we can kind of see the reasons why. What are some possible reasons why she let the fish go at the end, you think?
What was the question again?
What are some possible reasons that at the end of the poem she lets the fish go?
I think she lets the fish go because she sees that it's been through a lot, that it's like had a battle. It's gone through like so many things, like all the wires and the hooks.
Mm-hmm.
Like she sees that it's been through like a battle, like it's been through a lot.
Yeah. And it just needs to not be through another battle. She doesn't want to contribute to that kind of thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this time it didn't even fight. I mean, it's right at the beginning where it says he didn't fight. Well, he fought before because she talks about how his lip is weapon-like and there's these all these previous fish hooks that are stuck in his mouth from fighting previous fishing battles. So yeah, maybe it's out of respect, or maybe it's just about not wanting to contribute to the pain of the fish, but it kind of feels like the fish is giving up. But also that's not too enjoyable when you're fishing. You know, I mean, it's more enjoyable the hunt. It's like a hunt, right? So if the fish just flops into your boat, it's not much to that. So yeah, that's a good point. Any other points about this poem that anybody would like to make? Things that you noticed? I think she released him because she had sympathy for the fish. Yeah, because it had no more fight in him and she could see the scars from the previous battle. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Let him go live out his retirement in his retirement fish village. He earned it, right? With all of his fish hooks and his wire leads and all those things. Yeah. Okay, so the other poem that I asked you to look at that uses open form was Facing It by Yusuf Komunyakaa, who is an African American poet, still alive, still does readings. And this poem is a completely different poem, but it still uses the open form. We don't have a regular rhyme scheme or metrical pattern, but the poem is kind of hinges, your understanding of this poem kind of hinges on in phase one of your reading, looking up the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. I think if you don't do that, it's kind of hard to really understand what's happening in the poem. So that's why step one is there, so that you could go and look that up and see what does that mean, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. There is a memorial in Washington, D.C. that honors those who fell in the Vietnam War, those Americans. And if you have ever been to it, you know that it's a black granite, and it's got, even he says that online too up here, but it's very shiny. It's polished to a mirror shine, but it's still black, so it's not like directly like a mirror. And it's in a chevron shape, so it's in, you know, kind of like a diamond, and it goes higher in the middle, and then on the two sides it goes, you know, shorter. And then all the names of the soldiers that died in the war, and even there's a section for the you know, the lost, the POWs, that sort of thing, people that we don't even know what happened to them, are all on the wall. And people go to the memorial and they will bring pieces of paper, or they provide paper and pencils and do rubbings of their loved ones' names, because all the names are written there. Unlike other war memorials where it's just a memorial to the people and their names are not on it. People leave things, etc. So if you hadn't been to that memorial, you would not know those things, and then maybe the poem's more of a mystery. So the poem is really kind of a dance between reality and memory. And as he's looking at the wall, he's having some flashbacks to his time in the war. He's also kind of misreading what he's seeing, because things are happening in reality, but they're reflected in the wall and distorted in some ways that way. He thinks that, you know, the woman's blouse that's standing next to him and the names are kind of melding together. And so there's this idea of how memory and reality can combine. And it's especially poignant, I think, for the Vietnam veteran, because I don't know, we never really got to that spot in history, but maybe you guys do. So the Vietnam veterans suffered some pretty horrible fates when they returned back from war. Many of them were drafted. They had never thought that they would go to a war, never thought that they would be a soldier or kill anybody or see some of the atrocities that happen in war. And so they were, you know, scarred, PTSD, and so on. But also they weren't treated very well when they got back, because it was not a popular war. Americans did not want that war. And so when the soldiers came back, unfortunately, they symbolized the war, and many of them were mistreated and couldn't get jobs, and spit on in the streets and horrible things like that. So when we talk about memory and reality, just as general terms, we can see how that's reflected in a lot of the veterans' experiences. This has some structure to it. I don't think that it works the same sentence thing that we saw in the fish, but we do have some short sentences and longer sentences, but they don't tend to make a pattern. I think the structure in this poem comes from the experience of standing there and the different images that the speaker encounters as he's standing there in the space of the memorial. And it triggers some memories. He says, I go down the names, the 58,022 names, half expecting to find my own in letters like smoke. I touch the name Andrew Johnson. I see the booby trap's white flash. So there's a suggestion there that if he half expected to see his own name on the wall, then he must have been a soldier in the war, and maybe part of him never returned and died over there. And then Andrew Johnson has to be a reference to somebody that he lost, a comrade in the war, because he can remember the moment that he died with the booby trap. So he starts then noticing everyday things like the woman that's standing next to him, a plane in the sky, different things, and how they're sort of being absorbed by the stone. And so what's seen in the stone image and what's seen in reality is kind of in flux in this poem. And so the structure is kind of set up through that experience. Any comments on this one? Anything that you noticed that would be good to mention? Okay, let me move on and talk about your assignments for this week, and then I'm going to come back and do the notes on Greek drama terminology. It's just a short PowerPoint with some terms as we're getting ready to read this Greek drama. I'll come back to that. So for tomorrow, make sure that you do the commentary on your classmates' videos. I think you'll be really nicely surprised, maybe not surprised, you'll really enjoy looking at each other's videos and seeing what your classmates chose and how they explain the poems that they have. And then the reading assignments are all pretty much background material for reading the play, and they're kind of short. So there's a little short part on comedy and tragedy that I want you to read. Defining drama is just a couple of pages. Take notes on all of that. Stage directions, if you don't know how stage directions work, you need to look at that diagram and figure that out, because that's how directors and actors manipulate space on the stage. So take some notes about that. There's a video that I want you to watch specifically about Greek drama. It talks about the history of Greek drama in general and the background of that. It's very different from plays that we would see from the Renaissance on, really. So there is a big learning curve with the material, and I want you to get a little background. I think that video is maybe 7 minutes long, 7 or 8 minutes. I try not to pick long videos because I know I would hate it if I signed in to watch my video for class and it was 1:40 or something. You can make them go faster, but it makes it harder to take notes. I don't know. I don't like assigning big, long videos. Okay. And then the last thing is to read the preliminary stuff right before the play starts. So on page 14, I happen to have it right here. On page 1430, it looks like this. So on page 1430, you'll see background on the playwright, which is Sophocles. A little bit of context about, how plays began, because this is the time period where plays first existed. And then you'll see the characters down here. There are a good number of characters in this play, and they all have strange names. So you're going to need to look at that and kind of, in your mind, figure out who's who, because it's going to be hard to remember their names in terms of pronunciation, but I'll pronounce them all for you next week. And then at the top of the next page, right above this picture here, there's a little bit of a setting. So this will describe what's going on at the outset of the play. That's where I want you to read. Now, after that comes the first part of the play underneath the picture here. And I'm not going to stop you from reading that. I mean, I'm not going to know. But next week, I'm going to assign probably about 20 pages of the play. And we'll watch the video also. And then the following week, 20 pages, the last 20 pages of the play. So if you feel like this is a good week for you to get ahead, then you could start reading the play. I mean, I'm not going to stop you. So, but I'm going to officially assign it next week, about the first half of the play, because we want to finish it before Thanksgiving. So it's a little bit of a rush, but if you have extra time this week, I mean that as a joke, but maybe you do, maybe it's a lighter week, then, you know, you might want to start. We're going to read the whole play. We're going to read it from beginning to end. So if you get ahead, then that's good. I want to go back and do these notes on Greek drama real quick. Not real quick, but, you know, average. There's just not very many slides. Greek dramas are set up in a different way than we're used to in modern times, and I want to talk about that because there's some Greek terms that you need to know. They're going to be in the book, and you won't know, you know, what a stasimon is. It'll say stasimon, but you won't have a concept of what that is if I don't go through these things. One of the big differences, oh, there's the bell. Do you miss it? Can you hear it? I don't think you missed that. One of the big differences between modern plays and ancient plays is that there's a chorus in ancient plays, and we don't have that nowadays. We have musicals, but that's usually where the actors are singing their lines and giving their emotions through song. That's not the same thing as a chorus in a Greek drama. So a Greek drama has a group of people who represent the community of the setting, and they interact throughout the play with what's going on with the play, and they're called the chorus. So after every time that the actors are on stage doing what we would call a scene, when they're finished, the chorus comes in and they discuss what happened in the scene. Mainly because in ancient times, there were a lot of illiterate people and they needed stuff to be explained to them. So the chorus would come and add in all the details. And did you see this? And did you notice that? And that kind of thing. So there will be in the play these periods after every scene where the chorus comes in. They have a few roles. The chorus has a few roles. There's about 15 of them, 12 to 17 characters that make up the chorus. And they will ask questions, like maybe based on what just happened in that previous scene, they might say, oh, whatever is Oedipus to do? Or something like that. They interact with the actors. They do sometimes converse with the actors on stage, asking questions, etc. They represent the community within the drama. We already talked about that. They sometimes summarize what just happened, and they usually wear masks. So in ancient times, Greek theater was the first theater, and the ancient Greeks, when they were performing, wore masks. All of the actors on stage, including the chorus, wore masks that had sort of exaggerated faces on them. And that's because they didn't have a concept. I know it sounds simple to us, but they didn't have a concept of a person taking on a different identity, right? Like our actors can just act and we understand that that's not the real person that they're performing. And they don't have to change their appearance necessarily. But ancient Greeks got confused with that because if you know, Jack is standing there, I don't think Jack's the most Greek name, but if Jack's standing there, it's Jack. So in order to separate them and take on the role of their characters, they wore masks. The two productions that you can choose from to watch as we're studying this play, one of them has masks, like the traditional way, and one of them does not. So if they creep you out or something, then you can watch the one where there aren't masks, but the more traditional way is with the masks. And you'll see what I mean when I go to the next slide, because this is how the masks look. We should have done this last week for Halloween, right? They're different styles of masks, but you can see that obviously they can't change their expressions. It's fixed and it's exaggerated. So everything had to happen with their voice and with their gestures and, you know, their comportment with their bodies and things like that. So masks are a big part of that Greek theater experience. And it's even where we get the idea of the symbol. I'm sure you've seen this before, that represents the theater, right? The Commedia Tragedia masks, because they sort of represent, you know, the happiness and despair of life, those two extremes. And so that goes back to that ancient Greek tradition. It's a nod to them that we have this symbol. I think it's even emoji, I think. Let's see, did I talk about all this stuff? No real modern equivalent. Yes, I did. A group of non-actors. Yeah, they don't act. The chorus doesn't act. They just chant and stuff. Yeah, I already said that. I already said all that. All right. Choragus is a term that you need to know because there is a leader of the chorus, and he's called the choragus. Some people will say choragus. It's a Greek word. So I always learned choragus. This is the sort of leader of the chorus, and sometimes that leader will talk to the rest of the chorus and lead them in a certain direction. Other times the choragus will talk to the characters and have like a reaction moment with the characters or ask them questions and so on. So he's the main character that comments on the action and did you see what happened, or what do you think? You know, he's the instigator within the chorus, the choragus. All right, there's just a couple more terms. Ancient Greek dramas are not structured like plays that you might have read before. If you've read Shakespearean plays or modern plays, they're usually structured by act and scene. So within an act, there are multiple scenes, and there are maybe 5 acts in a full-length play. That's not how the ancient Greek dramas work. And as you start reading the text, you'll see that it has headings, but they're not the headings that you would expect. So the first thing that happens in an ancient Greek drama is the prologue. I'm sure you've heard that term before, that's not a new term. And it will have expository information. A lot of times it's 2 characters talking about what's been going on. And that way we're informed about what's going on and what the current crisis is, you know, what's the current situation, just like any exposition. Who are the main players, what's going on, what's the conflict, that sort of thing. They set the stage. After that comes the parados. The parados, you can remember that because it's the root of the word parade. A parados is when all of the chorus and some of the other characters sort of gradually march into the stage and form up as the chorus. So they parade in, they're usually singing or chanting something, but it's sort of a ritualistic thing where they come in and form the chorus together. And there might be a couple other characters because they're getting ready to do the next part. But there is a parade traditionally where they enter. And that's because these plays were written for competitions. That's how plays started in all of history. There were competitions and they were enormously popular, bigger than the Super Bowl. And they would do these structural elements in a similar way, but with different stories. And then each playwright competed with the other playwrights within that structure. All right, an episode is a scene. I guess the best equivalent to modern drama would be a scene. An episode is a period of discussion between characters. There's a dialogue. Another character might come in. Usually there's no more than 3 characters on stage at a time, not including the chorus, because the Greeks just didn't conceive of any more than 3 characters. That's just how they thought of it. So an episode is like a scene where the actors are having a discussion. Greek drama is also different. I didn't put this on the slide, but just so you're prepared a little bit, there's no action. It's all talking. So I don't want there to be a downer because there are revelations and there are epiphanies and things that happen during the play. But there's not going to be a sword fight. There's not going to be somebody punching somebody out, or, people getting on a boat and going out to sea. They'll just say, okay, I'm leaving to go get on the boat, and they walk off stage. And you're supposed to imagine all that other stuff. But they do bring in characters who are there to tell you their part of the story. And so it's about piecing all those little parts together to figure out how to solve the problem or the conflict that's happening in the play. So after every episode is a stasimon. A stasimon is when the chorus sings. So there'll be an episode, and then, as I said earlier, the chorus will review it. They'll talk about what happened. They'll ask questions. They'll create foreshadowing. Whatever could he have meant by that? Or whatever will Jocasta do? Things like that. And so the stasimon is the time when the chorus comes in to react to the previous episode. Exodus, you can probably figure that out. It's the root of the word exodus or exit, and that is the final scene of the play. There are about 4 cycles of episodes and stasimons before you get to the exodus, which is the end of the play. So that's the resolution. That's how it's left at the end. A tragedy like Oedipus or any other tragedy is going to end in a downfall. A comedy is usually going to end in a marriage or one of those happily ever after kind of scenes. Usually somebody's embarrassed, but nobody's, tragically marred by the circumstances in a comedy. So the Exodus is the final scene of the play. This is an image of one of the versions that you can choose to watch. This is the one with the masks. They're very detailed masks. I think that's a art in and of itself. But I like the one with the masks better personally, because I feel like it's more traditional. We can see a million plays where they don't wear masks, but it's kind of cool to see the ones where they do, how that works. But you'll have the option to watch that one or another performance that doesn't. I did put a link here, and I'll remind you next week too. I made a chart for you in case it helps you. This is not an assignment, but it might help you organize yourself as we go through these next 2.5 weeks of reading Oedipus and working with it. I put in all the sections of the play from the textbook, so I put them here, and little reminders of what those are. And then the pages where you can find them in the text. So we're probably going to read through episode 2 or the komos that comes after that. I didn't talk about komos because it's a stasimon type. The komos is just grief. They're just usually crying and wailing. So we'll probably finish off somewhere between here for next week, but I made a column. You can make a copy of this document if you think it would help you, where you can put in key characters and where you can jot down whatever your observations are. If you don't want to write in your textbook, or be a lot of notes for a notebook to keep them organized. So I made this to help you in case you want to. You can also add columns in case you wanted to keep track of other things, but I think this would be a good start to help you stay organized while you're reading and keep track of what's happening in the play. That's all I have for this. Is the end of the slideshow. It goes with the structure. We already talked about the bill schedule. Okay. So all of that plus the reading that you're going to do this week should set you up really well to begin the play next week. Are there any questions about the assignments? You can put them in the chat. All right, well, if there aren't any questions, then that's all I have for today. The next time I see you will be a Zoom meeting as usual a week from today on Tuesday. In the meantime, if you have questions, just send me an email or whatever, and I will get back to you. I hope you all have a good week. Bye.
You too. Have a good day.
Bye,
Bye,
Miss
Miss.
Ramos.
Bye, have a good day.